Do you remember me? I sure hope so, because it's been quite a while since I made my last video. It's actually been over 2 months. The last video I made was back in November of the mine tour with the underground miner group. And in case you weren't aware, the reason for my absence is I had a pretty harrowing experience trying to survive COVID. But today, February 2nd, marks an important day for a few reasons. Number one, this is my official return back to my channel. Number two, this video is the first video of 2022. Number three, and most importantly, as of today, I could say I'm about 95% recovered from COVID. I am no longer on oxygen or needing oxygen. I have most of my strength and energy back, and feeling well enough to get out and do the things I love to do, which has been for a while now. November was the last time I had any kind of fun. But I still do have a lingering cough. You can hear my throat is a little bit raspy. This is expected to last for a few months. And I still have to take things slow and easy until I get my full strength and energy back, because if I push myself too hard, I do get a bit winded. But as long as I go slow and steady, I feel well enough to get out and do this. And that's what we're doing today, is to get out, take a walk, and to enjoy some fresh air, see a bit of nature, and check out the beautiful snow-covered landscape here at the Dunmore #1 Reservoir. Now, what I'm also going to do, though, is share my story with you, my experience as to what I went through surviving COVID. And for two reasons. One, because many of you have asked for me to explain and to share what I went through. And number two, because I feel it's important to share, because many people think or only hear about the elderly or people with underlying health conditions who are severely affected. And as a healthy, nearly 41-year-old adult male who's never had any health problems, stays pretty active, I could tell you it kicked me down to a pretty scary point in my life. Now, if you're fortunate enough to only have mild symptoms from COVID, well, my story will be able to show you what others are not so fortunate to deal with. And if you've gone through anything like I've gone through, well, you could definitely relate to my story. Now, I'm going to be transparent with you. I'm going to cover everything from when my symptoms first started to being hospitalized and my at-home recovery. The one thing I'm not going to do, though, is push anything on you. Everyone has their own personal choice and beliefs when it comes to the vaccination and COVID. So whatever your choice is as to what you think is right or wrong, or what you think keeps you safe, is your opinion, your choice. But all I can ask is just to be respectful, not to push on other people. I'm not pushing anything on you except for my story. But at the same time, I understand not everyone wants to hear about COVID. So if you feel this video is not for you, you can watch something else. I completely understand, no hard feelings. If you are willing to stick around, I'm going to be rambling. I'm going to be sharing a lot of details. It's going to be probably a little bit of a lengthy video, but that's because I want to cover everything and be open and honest with you. At the same time, throw in a little bit of nature and stuff like that. But it's been a while since I've done a video, obviously. I'm going to be rusty. I'm going to try to keep it raw and real as much as I can. And I'm going to just wing it, hope for the best. If you do stick around to the end of the video, I'm also going to share a little bit of news regarding my channel as far as some little changes that were made and plans for the upcoming future. If you don't stick around for that, you're not really missing anything. But if you do stick around, I just wanted to share that with you who do care to watch the entire video, to keep you in the loop. But I think the last thing I need to say right now is to come along with me. Come on, let's go. All right, so we're off and walking. So first, I just want to thank you for tuning in for this video. If you are continuing to watch, I definitely have missed all of you, and I do feel a little bit nervous because it's been so long since I've actually held this camera and made a video. But it's like getting on a bike, you just have to kind of get used to it. Now, I do have a little index card here with some dates on it, just so I can remember in detail what took place when. Because like I said, this started back in November. So I'm going to be sharing with you as much as I can without trying to be boring. And at the same time, give you little breaks to show you some of the landscape and nature here. But I'm going to be covering a lot of information. And all I can ask you to do is to watch and listen to the end. Because like I said, I not only have news to share, but having COVID changed me in more ways than one. And I'll explain that a little bit later on. So I'm going to make my way down this trail. There's actually some people walking on the lake right now, which is frozen, but I probably wouldn't do that today because it's supposed to be in the 40s. And I don't know how thick that ice is, so hopefully we don't have to call anyone for help. But as you can see behind me here, the trail is snow covered. It's packed down from walkers. And it's supposed to rain tomorrow and then snow on Friday, so this is going to be a mess. I'm glad I'm coming out today when it's a nice, comfortable day. And you can hear a little bit of traffic in the background, probably a little bit of wind, but that is what I'm hearing as well, so can't do much about that. So I'm going to cover a little bit of ground here, show you some shots along the way, and then we're going to start going down my story of COVID. Not sure if you can hear the crunching of the snow. A lot of people enjoy that sound. You can see some animal tracks here and there. A lot of things are covered up. There's probably maybe, I'd say about 3 inches of snow. Nothing too significant. It's kind of been built upon little by little with snow showers and some squalls here and there. And the reservoir is out that way. I may try to get behind it. I did walk around this reservoir before once, showing the backside of it, which is pretty neat to see. And there's a trail that we're on now, which does continue straight, which I never walked to see where it goes. So we may do that today as part of my trek and story to tell. So we'll just kind of wing it, like I said. No real plan except to just talk with you guys. All right, so things started out in November, specifically November 24th, the day before Thanksgiving. Day before Thanksgiving, in the evening, watching TV with Joe and Lily, and I started developing like a dry cough. Just like an irritation in the throat, like an itch that you can't get rid of, and just kept coughing almost the entire evening into bedtime. And after laying down, the cough kind of subsided. I didn't think anything of it, you know. I just figured maybe it was just a funny scratch I had in my throat. Come Thanksgiving morning, the 25th, I woke up freezing, shivering, and I'm like, oh, I know this feeling. I felt achy, I felt chills in my back. Took my temperature. I was 103, a really high temperature. Still had my taste, still had my smell. I didn't think it was anything other than just a regular common cold. Worst case scenario, the flu. So I took Advil or Tylenol, brought the fever down, felt a bit better. Later in the day, fever came back. Took some more Advil or Tylenol because I rotated them, and then took some Dayquil tablets. That made me feel a whole lot better. The fever went away for longer. The cough kind of subsided to nothing. The achiness went away, and I felt pretty normal, at least for most of the day. Thanksgiving evening, fever returned, 103 again. Achy, sore, just not feeling great at all. And I basically, for the next few days, just tried to ride it out with Advil, Tylenol, and Dayquil. And it gave me temporary relief, but nothing permanently gone. It was just putting a Band-Aid on it. So, the weekend after Thanksgiving, I plan to go to urgent care, which is like a little medical clinic. And the wait times online to go there, because you have to reserve a spot since you have COVID or COVID-like symptoms, the wait was like over 3 hours. I'm like, I can't wait that long. I'm not going to wait that long. So I waited until Monday, which was the 29th. Monday the 29th, I had my appointment, went to urgent care. And this is when I knew things were not right, because I got to the waiting room and I felt like wiped out. Like I felt I had no strength, no energy, just really, it's hard to describe. It just felt like defeated, you know? So I'm sitting in the waiting room with my mask on in the chair, and I was like slumped over. I could barely hold myself up. I felt so weak, so fatigued. I never felt like that before. And I went to the counter. I'm like, do you know how much longer it's going to be? And she's like, anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes. I said, can I wait in my car? I said, you guys could call me when I'm ready. I said, because I'm having a hard time like sitting in the room here. I had to go in my car and recline the seat back to kind of get some rest and relief. And I felt a little bit better then. But I knew then something was wrong because I never felt like that before from a common cold. So in the medical clinic there, urgent care, they obviously did a COVID test. They did other tests. They checked my O2 levels. I was in the upper 90s. They checked my blood pressure, heart rate, everything like that. Everything came back pretty normal for the most part. They knew something was wrong, but they said it could be the flu, could be COVID, could be something else. So I got sent home, and results came back Tuesday the 30th. I tested positive for COVID. And this was before the whole Omicron thing, I think. It's just regular COVID I had. And I was not happy with the results because for over 2 years almost, I played it, relatively safe. I keep myself really clean. I have hand sanitizer, baby wipes. I wore a mask when necessary. I've also traveled to Vegas. I traveled to Vegas twice, Pittsburgh several times, and never had any issues with being around people. So with that being said, I don't know where I contracted it from. It happened sometime probably, before the underground miners thing or after then. I don't know what the time frame is exactly because I don't remember being in close contact with anyone that had it, and I truly don't know where I got it. No one else that was around that day said they had any symptoms. It was just me. So continuing on, after being home, let's see, we're now on Wednesday, the day after I got the positive test results. I started losing my appetite. Still had taste and smell. That's why I had a hard time believing I had COVID, because usually the telltale signs is you lose your taste and smell. Well, I never lost mine. I've had them the entire time. But I started losing my appetite. I was not feeling hungry at all. And when I ate, I could only eat a little bit without forcing myself to feel sick. So started losing my appetite on Wednesday the 1st, and from there on I basically went down to no appetite at all. I stopped eating food. I just had no hunger. I had no anything to want to have some food, so I just kept hydrated with tons of Gatorade and water. That's primarily what I drank. From hearing I had COVID, that was recommended from them. Keep hydrated all the way up until later on in the week. So as the week went on, aside from losing my appetite, I started getting short of breath very easily. If I was sitting down doing nothing, I felt okay. If I walked any length of time more than like a minute or two, I started getting short of breath, like, as if like you're climbing a set of steps. You know how you feel winded and tired? I felt like that just taking normal steps through the house. I'm still trying to do a normal life. I'm still trying to do my part as far as chores like vacuuming, stuff like that. Vacuuming, after I did it once, wiped me out. I mean, I was down for the count for about an hour. So no appetite, short of breath, getting fatigued very easily. Just kept on with Advil, Tylenol, Dayquil, hoping that it would kind of pass by without getting any worse. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. So that brings us to Friday, December 3rd. In the morning, I was probably feeling the worst I felt so far. And I called urgent care, since they did treat me and test me. I told them, I'm feeling worse. I'm not really improving at all. I'm like, can I come back to maybe get an x-ray of my lungs, my chest, to see if I have any fluid? Because at that time, when I would lay down to get some rest, I started hearing that percolating sound, that bubbly sound when I was breathing. And I was pretty certain that I had fluid in my lungs, because I had, not the flu before, I'll put it on the screen here what it's called. I had it once before. I remember that same sound, same feeling. So when I laid down, I had not a super clear airway. I heard fluid, and I knew that wasn't good. So like, yeah, you could come in tomorrow, get an x-ray, and you know, we'll see what we could do. Friday evening, the 3rd, we're still on the 3rd. By the evening, I was short of breath just sitting in the chair watching TV, doing nothing at all. I still haven't eaten. I was just keeping hydrated, but I was having like a heavy feeling on my chest, like something was weighing my chest down, and I had to keep taking these big breaths in order to get a good breath. And I'm like, I don't feel right. I don't feel good right now. There's actually a bench here. I'm gonna sit down for a minute. We'll take a little break here and keep going after that. Okay, so picking up where I left off, Friday night the 3rd, sitting at home, feeling short of breath, very fatigued, very weak, and I didn't think I was going to make it to Saturday. I'm like, if I can't breathe right now, I can't imagine how I'm going to be 12, 15 hours from now. So after talking with Jill about it, we made the decision to call for an ambulance. They came to the house. They immediately started testing, you know, my O2 levels, heart rate, blood pressure. Sitting in the chair doing nothing, my O2 was around 80, which is pretty low for just doing nothing. Like at rest, it should never be that low. Prior to that, I didn't have an O2 oximeter to test my levels. I now since have one, but at sitting, I was around 80. When I got up to walk to make my way to the ambulance, the stretcher outside, I dropped down into like the mid 70s. It was really low. So heart rate was okay. It was a little bit elevated because my body was working harder to get oxygen, to get breath. Blood pressure was pretty normal. They put me on a nasal cannula, which is a tube that goes around you behind the ears to give me oxygen. They put it up to the max, which was 15 liters. And with that particular setup in the ambulance, my O2 levels weren't really coming up much. I was still in the 80s, maybe went up to the high 80s. And the paramedic, she's like, yeah, we need to try a different mask. So they put on what is called a non-rebreather. So it's like a full face mask. It covers your nose and mouth, has a bag on the bottom that fills up with high concentrate oxygen. And what it allows you to do is to breathe in the oxygen, but it doesn't allow you to exhale anything. So like you just keep having oxygen coming into your system. Wearing that at the max of 15 liters, my levels came up to the mid 90s. It was safe at that point. Brought me to the hospital and kept me on that mask the entire way there. And if you've ever ridden in an ambulance, I could tell you it's one of the worst rides ever. I was bouncing around like crazy. Streets of Pennsylvania are bad the way it is, but in the back of an ambulance, it was not a fun ride. Thankfully, they didn't have the lights or sirens on. It was just a normal ride to the hospital, but it was a bumpy ride. So that brings us to the night. Around 10 p.m., I'm in the ER at the hospital. They're waiting to get me a room in the ER, and that was a scary sight. Now, when they talk about hospitals being at max capacity or over it, they're not kidding. The hallways were lined with beds with patients. Waiting rooms were made into makeshift hospital rooms. Like, they used every space possible to have people there that needed help, most of which I'm guessing were probably there for COVID. I heard sound. So eventually, after about 45 minutes there, they get me into a room in the ER, which is just a temporary room. It has a sliding glass door to keep me kind of protected from the outside people. Thankfully, I had a TV in there, but I was on like a temporary bed / stretcher. It was really uncomfortable, no padding to it. So it was just not enjoyable at all, which it's not going to be, but they kept me on the non-rebreather the entire time. While I was in that room, they came in, they did a chest x-ray, they did a EKG, which is testing the heart, and they also took me out to do a CAT scan, which is where you go inside that circular thing and that thing spins around. So that was all done when I was in the emergency room up until between 10 p.m. and midnight. When they wheeled me to the CAT scan room, which is another part of the ER, I went through halls being pushed by the nurses or whoever, and it was just an unbelievable sight. Just people everywhere in beds, in chairs, just waiting to be seen, waiting to get rooms. So I'm fortunate enough, and I say this without any doubt, that I'm very fortunate enough to be taken in by ambulance, because I was kind of pushed ahead. And I'm not saying that was right for I mean, I have no control over that. That's not right for me to go ahead of anyone else. But with me having such low O2 levels, I guess I was more of a priority than other people. So they were able to get me a room and start doing tests on me right away, which I was really grateful for. So before we continue, let me show you a couple shots here, and then we'll continue down the trail. I'm just sitting on the bench there. There is somewhat of a little trail going this way, not too packed down. Maybe more of an animal trail. But I'm going to go back to the main trail here, and we'll continue walking. There's looking back where we came from. And back here, it's much quieter and less wind, which is making for some ideal conditions. Looks like a type of trail going off that way too. Right now I'm walking in some ATV tracks or side-by-side tracks. Not a whole lot of footprints back here, but I'm glad these are here because otherwise it'd be a little bit more difficult to walk in the snow. So continuing on, we're now just after midnight, which is December 3rd going into December 4th. They said they got me a room upstairs in the hospital, a private room, obviously because I do have COVID. They also retested me in the emergency room for COVID to confirm I still had it, which I did. I still had a fever. They had to treat me for that with Tylenol to keep it level. And the one thing, the entire time since this all started, my fever always went to about 103, slightly above. They said that was a dangerously high temperature to have. Typically it's 100, 101, maybe 102. I had 103 every time, so that means, you know, it was pretty bad. So I get up to my hospital room, get into a more actual hospital bed, I guess you could say, where I was able to adjust the back and everything like that. They got me situated. Getting from the hospital bed, the emergency room bed to the hospital bed, I did it on my own, but even with the oxygen on, it wiped me right out. I had very little strength, very little energy, and I was able to do it on my own, but just barely. So we're looking overnight now, probably around 2, 3 a.m. They came in and hooked me up to what is called vapotherm. It's actually high pressure oxygen. So they took me off the full face non-rebreather, put me on vapotherm, and that's at 40 liters of oxygen. It's a super high output of oxygen. And I'll show some pictures of what it looked like. It's similar to a nasal cannula, but it's a bigger tubing, allows more oxygen flow, and aside from having 40 liters, they could adjust how strong it's pushed out as well. Anywhere from like 10 to 100%. So they had me at 40 liters, around 70 or 80%. And that was enough to keep my levels in the 90s and not have to really worry about, you know, getting any worse, at least at that time. So vapotherm was what I was on for, I would say at least 7, 8, maybe 9 days. But I'm jumping ahead. So after they hooked me up to vapotherm, one of the doctors came in, and this is overnight. You know, I wasn't sleeping. I didn't, you know, I was just worried, nervous, not tired. It was an ICU doctor who doesn't typically see patients in the general hospital area that I was in. He's an ICU hospital who sees people who are much worse. And no word to lie, he put the fear of God in me. He came in, you know, kind of see how things are going, and kind of laid it all out there very bluntly. And when I say that, I guess you could say no bedside manners. He just put it out there to not kind of sugarcoat things. And what he basically said is, we have you on the highest level of oxygen we could have you on right now with this vapotherm. He's like, if you don't improve using this within the next 24 to 48 hours, you're going to end up on a ventilator. He's like, do you agree to that? And at this point, I'm like, what? I'm like, there's a possibility this is going to happen? And I'm like, well, what if I don't? He's like, if you don't, you're probably going to die. I said, well, if I go on the ventilator, what's the chance of survival? He said, it's less than 10%. And at this point, like, my mind is just going crazy. And I'm like, I can't give you that answer right now. I'm like, you're hitting me all at once with this. So that put the fear of God in me. I'm like, if this doesn't work right now, and I take a turn for the worst, I may not be coming out of the hospital. And I'm not saying this to be dramatic. I'm just putting it out there as to what I was told and how I felt. I felt scared at this point. I'm like, I thought I'm coming in just to get treated. I'll be released soon. And now there's a chance that if this doesn't work, this vapotherm, they're going to put me in a coma, put tubes down me, and have a machine breathe for me. And I've heard stories of many people not surviving that. So, come the morning, I didn't really sleep at all, just a little bit of a wink here and there. Come morning time, they came in, gave me my results from blood work and everything else, x-rays, everything else. They said I have COVID pneumonia. Had pneumonia, both my lungs, they were filled with fluid, mostly filled. They said I was lucky I was able to even breathe on my own. So the nasal cannula didn't work. The rebreather only worked, you know, to a certain extent. It was the high flow vapotherm that was doing the job, doing the trick. So hearing the news, it was just like, man, this is getting worse and worse. They're like, you're not going to be going home anytime soon. So I'm keeping Jill updated. You know, we're both upset, we're both scared and worried. And at that point, I still wasn't eating. They brought me breakfast, brought me lunch, brought me dinner. I had no appetite still. I was just drinking ice water, some apple juice here and there, and just not knowing what to think, what the outcome's going to be. I was legit worried and fearful that I may not survive this, because just because I felt okay at the moment doesn't mean things might not go worse. What was even more challenging though is at the same time, any little thing I did was super exhausting and painful to do. I don't mean painful like hurt-wise, painful just like it was super difficult. Just to turn from one side to the other in my bed, my oxygen levels would drop down. For me to try to go to the bathroom, I was able to walk to the bathroom, but not on my own. I had to have a nurse help me, and wearing the vapotherm wasn't enough. When I started walking, I dropped back down into the 80s again. So I had to wear vapotherm, plus they put the non-rebreather back on me. So I was wearing 2 different types of O2 masks just to have enough oxygen to make it to the bathroom. And once I got to the bathroom, I had to sit down, kind of recuperate, get my breath back. So a 8-foot walk to the bathroom wiped me out like I ran a marathon. And when you get that feeling where you can't catch your breath, it's really scary, because you have to just sit there and take slow, deep breaths to get the oxygen in your lungs. Because at that point, I was still filled with fluid from pneumonia. This keeps going uphill, it gets thicker and thicker, so I'm going to turn around. We'll go on a different trail. But I'm not sure how high or how far it's going to go, but I don't want to get too far. So every little task, any little thing wiped me out. I had to have the mask on 24/7. And if I did go to the bathroom or do anything to get up out of bed, I had to wear the double mask. That was the only way I was able to handle it. If it wasn't for that non-rebreather being on it, I probably would have collapsed from exhaustion and lack of oxygen, in the bathroom, because it was just that difficult for me. So, coming days, they keep monitoring me. They keep checking my levels. They do blood work once a day. They did another x-ray at some point, and they started putting me on IVs. I was on a steroid IV, every day, and I was on another IV called remdesivir. It's specifically for COVID patients who have, you know, respiratory problems. I guess between that and the steroid is supposed to help, you know, help your lungs recover, help get rid of the fluid. And I was on those every day for pretty much my entire stay. I also was given a oral medication once a day of 2 pills. They were designed specifically for COVID patients to help them recover, recuperate, get rid of the symptoms faster. So I was on 3 different types of medications, I guess you could call them. And over the next few days, I made it past the 48-hour point, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to be on a ventilator, so this is good news. You know, starting to see signs of improvement, but I was still very weak, not sleeping good. Barely having any appetite at all. It started slowly coming back, I would say around so I got in there on the 3rd. Probably wasn't until the 5th or 6th that I started eating again, but only very little. So I went almost a week without eating any food at all. I started eating slowly, but I was nervous about eating because obviously I'd have to go to the bathroom, and going to the bathroom was almost nerve-wracking for me because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to go and struggle again just to try to make it to the bathroom. So I ate because they encouraged me to, ate what I could, and I'm typically a pretty big eater. I've always finished my food on my plate, and hospital food is not fantastic. They don't give you large portions, but I didn't even finish it. You know, it's just a little bit here, eggs in the morning, a bite of like a sandwich and lunch and dinner, just enough to get something in me. And that slowly started coming back as the days went on, started getting my appetite more and more. So finally, we're around I think around the 9th or 10th of December. I'm already in there over a week. And they were able to start bringing the vapotherm down from 40% down to, I think, around 20%. And then we're bringing the output down from 100% down to around, they knocked it down to 70, then down to 40. So I was slowly getting weaned off that vapotherm, the high flow oxygen. And I was able to start doing a bit more without being so fatigued and winded, like going to the bathroom or, you know, walking around the room just a little bit. I had to take literally baby steps so I didn't exhaust myself, but I was at least making signs of improvement. Going forth, they switched me finally from the vapotherm back to the nasal cannula, which is just the tube that goes in your nose around the ears. They put me on that at around 12%, and if I was just sitting there in the chair, I was upper 90s for O2 levels. I was doing pretty good on just that. If I got up to walk around, I dropped down to the 80s, but it would come back up on its own. So each day was getting better and better. I was seen by different doctors each day. They were basically telling me, you know, we're going to try this. We're going to see how you do. You know, we don't know when you're going home yet, but, you know, as long as you keep improving, it'll be sooner than later. But there is one thing I forgot to mention. That first doctor that came in that scared the crap out of me, he told me, he recommended I do what is called the prone position, P-R-O-N-E. You can look it up if you want. What it is basically when you're in the hospital on the bed, instead of laying on your back, which most people do, they recommend laying on your stomach. And what that does, it takes the pressure off your lungs to allow you to get more flow into them. So prone position was recommended by him. He's like, you need to do this to help recover. He's like, if you don't, it's going to decrease your chances of surviving this. You know, going into prone position, laying on my back, having to turn over was pretty hard because it took a lot out of me. On top of that, I had all these sensors wired up to me so they could keep monitoring me the whole time. So laying on my stomach in the hospital was not easy, but I did it. I'm not a stomach sleeper. It was uncomfortable for me. So I was able to do it for maybe 10-15 minutes. Then I had to go back. Later on, I tried again, but I didn't do it every day or nonstop just because it was very hard for me to do. But I did do it as many times as I could. And he said that that is known to help speed up recovery and get more air back into the lungs. All right, we're back at the bench now. We're going to go back and then we'll maybe take a right up here at the other trail. All right, I told you this was long-winded, so I hope you're still watching and listening. So after all that, we're coming towards the over 10-day mark, and I was still on the nasal cannula. They were bringing me down lower and lower, down to around 7 liters, down to 5 liters. Finally, on like the 9th or 10th day, they brought me down to 3 liters, which is not a whole lot of oxygen. Sitting in the chair, which is where I spent most of my time during the day, I was around 98-99% oxygen. Heart rate was better. Heart rate came way down to like the 60s at rest. Blood pressure was really good. I was showing really good signs of doing much better. I was able to go to the bathroom on my own. I had to go slow and easy. I was able to start, you know, getting cleaned up, getting washed up, you know, doing what I had to do for myself without too much struggle, but I couldn't go full speed like you normally would. Also, within that time too, the first few days there, I was just by myself, you know. No one was able to be with me. Anyone that came into the room had to be full dressed in protective clothing because I was a COVID patient. So after a few days, I was finally able to allow one person to come, and that was Jill, to have her bring me some stuff like bring me razors, change of clothes, stuff like that. And she was only able to stay for like an hour or two. So only talking to her, doing video calls with her was the only contact I had with her and Lily for the first 3-4 days. And then Jill came, which was amazing to see her because you know, after hearing from that doctor, me and her weren't sure what was going to happen, but you know, I was able to have her come for an hour or two, but I felt more at ease having her there, so that definitely helped. She came, I think she came once about 2 days later to bring me some more stuff just to spend some time together, which was a part of my recovery. It just meant a lot to me to have her come there. So I know I'm kind of getting out of order. I'm really bad at telling stories, but I'm doing my best. Finally, we come to December 12th. They told me that I'm done off the remdesivir. I'm done with the steroid, and that they're going to have me do like some tests to see how I do. And by test, I mean they're going to have me walk around, do some stuff in the room to see how I handle it. And doing so on 3% oxygen, I was doing pretty good. I was able to do everything I need to do that they asked me to do. Levels would drop down, but when I stopped moving, they'd come back up. So that was expected, and I did well. So I said, okay, looks like tomorrow, the 13th, you could go home. So I'm like, oh, thank God. I'm like, I'm actually coming home. I've made such progress. So 11 days in the hospital, I got sent home. But I got sent home with oxygen. I had at-home delivery. Oh, this is pretty neat here. Let me show you this, and then we'll continue. There's an area of the little stream coming in that's partially frozen, snow covered, but you can see some breaks in it here. And it looks really nice. Look at that. I'll take you for a quick walk up here and show you where the water flow goes. I walked here before when I made my last video here. I'm actually walking on ice right now. This is normally a creek bed here, which is flowing out to the reservoir, which is still snow covered, ice covered. And if you ever seen that last video, this is, ooh, I heard cracking. This is also the same area too where I found a lot of those downed trees from the beavers, which was really impressive. Some massive trees that were eating away at the beavers. Some nice clear patches here. The under here is all river stone water, just like that, but that's the exposed area. And there we are, looking back out to the reservoir where we started, way up there. All right, so I'm going to kind of backtrack my steps now, go back towards that front, because I'm going to be kind of getting closer to the end of my story, but I still have more to share. Let's see where we leave off. Okay, so it's getting discharged. Was given instructions as to, you know, basically just take it slow and easy, rest, try to walk around, but you know, don't exert yourself too much. They sent me home with a portable concentrator that will put out a maximum of 4 liters of oxygen. So they sent me home on that, which is the nasal cannula, and it's a rechargeable unit that you wheel like a suitcase. And they had me on 3 units of oxygen going home. And at home, they had an at-home delivery for me of a regular size concentrator and portable tanks and other stuff. So I'm going to roll a clip right now that I filmed at home showing you the equipment I was on at home. So check that out and we'll be right back. Now here's a look at some of the equipment I've been having to use since I was discharged from the hospital. Now this first item here I was sent home with from the hospital. This is called Ox Life Independent. It's a portable concentrator, and the great thing about it has a built-in rechargeable battery, and it goes up to 3 liters of oxygen, and you can adjust it for pulse or for continuous. And I was sent home with this to take home. It does come with a rechargeable cord for recharging it, and also a cigarette lighter adapter if you have to travel with it. But it's pretty easy to use, and this is what I was using initially when I first was discharged. Over here is a larger concentrator. This is what I've been on most of the time. You can see it has this really long hose which allows me to get through many parts of the house, and it's adjustable right there from down to 1 liter up to 5 liters. And for a good portion of my at-home recovery I was on 4 liters because when I did do anything physical or strenuous, my oxygen would drop down. So 4 liters was what I need to stay on to get my lungs kind of built back up and to help them recover better. Then I was able to drop it down to 2 liters for a while and eventually wean off of it. And over here is my portable setup, which I use to either get to other parts of the house that this won't reach to, or for when I'm traveling to my doctor's appointments. I have 6 of those tanks. The good thing about these is that they are portable, obviously, and they go up to 15 liters if necessary. But when initially I was using it on 4 or 5 liters to walk, any distance to my appointments, and to go to different parts of the house, I would have it on 2 or 3. But this is what was necessary for me to have my at-home recovery once I was discharged from the hospital. Without this, I would have been back in the hospital because my lungs just couldn't sustain on their own. And this is what I was using 24/7 for a few weeks. I was sleeping with it on, showering with it on, because anything involving me standing up, walking around initially would lower my O2 levels and basically just made it very difficult to function. So these were necessary for my at-home recovery. So the other piece of equipment which is necessary for someone who is coming off of a recovery like myself, who's on oxygen, is this thing right here. It's called a pulse oximeter. It's an O2 reader. It's the same type they use at doctor offices and hospitals. All you do is stick your finger in there and it will read your O2 level and your pulse. And this was extremely useful for seeing what my levels were when I was resting or walking around or doing anything strenuous, to make sure that my levels weren't getting too low. If they were, I'd be able to hop on the oxygen, or to see if they were high enough that I could continue doing what I was doing. But this was off Amazon for roughly 25-30 bucks, and it's a great tool to monitor both your pulse and O2 levels. All right, so you saw the equipment I was on, and I did make a mistake my first full day home. So I got home, that was the 13th I was home. So 13th, I just kind of rested at home, stayed on the oxygen. By the morning of the 14th, I was feeling a lot better and thinking, all right, I'm gonna take the oxygen off. I'll just take it slow and easy. I'll put the oxygen on if I need it. I tried taking a shower. That was a big mistake, because standing for the amount of time I had to stand in the shower, plus, excuse me, I'm getting hiccups here. Standing in the shower, wash myself, was too much for me. I got really winded, really low of energy, and when I got out, I was feeling that old feeling of having to take those deep breaths to get a full breath of oxygen. So I went back on the oxygen, and I went back on the portable concentrator, put it up to 4 units or 4 liters. That wasn't enough. I couldn't catch my breath. I'm like, oh boy, I hope I didn't overdo this. So Jill had to hook up one of the portable tanks, which has a max output of 15 units, 15 liters. So I went on that, And after sitting for about 30 minutes on 15 units, I got my breath back and my heart rate came down, fell back to normal. So I'm like, okay, I can't not be off oxygen yet. So the only time I would really take it off is if I had to blow my nose, which I was barely able to. It was like I had no breath, no blow to get stuff out because I just had not enough air in my lungs for that. If I did anything in the house, like walking to the bathroom, to the kitchen, you know, I had to be on oxygen. If I tried to do it without it, I'd get wiped out. I just wasn't recovered enough yet. So part of being at home on oxygen, the one thing they recommended me to do, which they had me start in the hospital, was using a spirometer. And a spirometer is a little device that has like clear tubes and a meter inside of it with the hose, and you put it to your mouth and you inhale. When you inhale, it raises the level to show you, you know, how strong your breath is. They had me started doing that in the hospital, and I was only able to get it just over 500 on the line there. Barely at all. I was able to hardly take a deep breath. And after doing it at home, I started going higher and higher, up to 2,000, 2,500, 3,000. Now, as of today, I could get up to just over 4,000. But showing that I was as low as 500 just shows you how little of lung capacity I had. So I had to do that every day, multiple times a day, along with staying on oxygen. And at that point, I had an O2 meter, which you saw in that video, an oximeter to keep check of my my levels. It does the heart rate and the oxygen levels, so I had to just kind of keep things monitored. So that brings us to the end of the month. I had a doctor's visit within that time, just kind of check in and see how things are. He told me to keep on the oxygen, keep doing what you're doing. If things get worse, to report back, but otherwise, you know, these like symptoms may last for a couple weeks or a couple months, including my cough, which happens from time to time. It's very sporadic when I start coughing. But from when I came home after my shower incident of not using oxygen up until around December 29th or 30th, I was on oxygen 24/7. I had to sleep with it on, I had to take a shower with it on. Everything I did, I had to have oxygen. If I went to the doctors, we had to take the portable unit. The good thing about the concentrators, they had a long extension, so if I had it, you know, in my dining room, I could be in the living room, I could go to the kitchen, I could go in the bathroom without having to disconnect or move it. So I was able to at least live somewhat of a normal life, having oxygen on 24/7. I even had to wear that in the shower to take a shower. It was just still too much for me. So finally, you know, towards around the 29th or 30th, I started weaning off, where I was putting myself down to around 2 units of oxygen, or liters. And I was able to keep my O2 levels around 98. Eventually took it off altogether and just made sure I went slow and easy. I just didn't overexert myself. I was not able to really go downstairs at all to even play my trains or do stuff like that, because the steps took a lot out of me. I'd have to crank up the oxygen in order to come back up the steps. So I only went down when I had to, you know, get a video uploaded or do whatever I had to do to leave the house. But I primarily stayed upstairs, kept where it's level, walked slow and easy, didn't do anything of lifting, anything like that. But after about a week of no oxygen at all, there was a morning where I started feeling heaviness again, started having like a harder time breathing, and heart rate went up into like the 90s, low hundreds. And I contacted my doctor. He's like, yeah, it's like you're just not recovered yet. He's like, if you need to, go back on the oxygen. So I went back on for that day. Everything kind of settled back down. I was able to come back off, and between when that happened and up until about 2 weeks ago, I've had to do that 2 or 3 times, where I had to go back on oxygen just for a few hours to kind of get my breath back. But as of now, as of the last 2 weeks or so, actually as of, I marked down the date because I kept track of everything, January 10th. January 10th, I was completely done with the oxygen. Did not have to use it anymore at all. And that was a great feeling. I was starting to feel normal again. I was able to do things like the steps. I was able to take showers, able to do everything I need to do as a person and not feel severely winded. If I did step so, I still had to go slow. I would get a bit winded at the top, but I was able to at least regain my oxygen levels. I'd wear the O2 meter. I would drop down to like the low 90s, upper 80s, but I'd come back up on my own just from sitting there for a minute or two. I also, for the first time, went out, took a walk in the neighborhood. Just started on a level street, went slow and easy, did okay, wore the O2 meter, and kept my levels at a safe place. Eventually, I started getting myself more comfortable to go uphill, go further. And again, I would get a little bit winded, levels would drop, but they'd come back up. So it was good progress. It was good to get fresh air in my lungs and to kind of push myself a bit more. And that brings us up to today, where aside from, you know, if I'm going to run or climb a steep hill or carry something heavy for a long distance, I feel really good. Now, I'm going to get up here, I'm going to sit back down, I'm going to share a couple things that changed with me in more ways than one with having COVID. So I'll see you up there and we'll continue chatting. Alright, so we're back where we started the video. It is more breezy here, so I do apologize for any wind. But I want to talk about how having COVID changed me in more ways than one. Some good, mostly good actually, a little bit not so good. So I'll start with the good first. So as I mentioned, in the hospital, after a few days I started getting my appetite back. And people who know me have known me for a while, especially, or even watching me with Chow Time. I'd never been a healthy eater, not particularly anyways. I didn't really like many vegetables. The one time I would eat vegetables primarily as if they were like mixed in with soup or with something else. But to eat them on their own, I typically didn't do. I didn't enjoy the taste or anything like that. Well, they served me some meals, like an open-faced turkey sandwich. They served me, what else? A burger, other stuff like that. But as the sides, came with steamed broccoli, steamed baby carrots, green beans, and I'm like, you know what, for the heck of it, I'm hungry, I'm gonna eat it. And I actually enjoyed it. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, am I actually eating the right thing here? So I started eating broccoli, started eating carrots, green beans, peas, and I actually enjoyed it. I didn't have to mix it with anything. I didn't have to try to wash it down. I ate them and actually enjoyed them. So something I never enjoyed before, I enjoy now. And I make it part of my meals every week of having broccoli, carrots, green beans, corn, all the other stuff, but I've actually started eating healthier. Also too, I've been a huge soda drinker. I used to drink diet soda daily, pretty much most of the day, except for water and milk here and there. I drank mostly soda. Well, in the hospital they gave me a can, like a little miniature can of Diet Coke with one of my meals because I asked for it, and I almost spit it out. I'm like, oh, this soda's bad. So I ended up getting just water instead. So get back home eating meals, and I got a glass of Diet Pepsi. So at home I took a drink of Diet Pepsi, again spit it out. I'm like, oh, this is nasty, what's wrong? I lost my taste for soda. I no longer enjoy soda at all. I haven't drinking diet soda since before Thanksgiving. That's how long it's been. Since then I haven't drank any soda at all. So I'm completely off of soda now, which is a great thing because diet soda is not good for you at all. I just enjoy the taste of it, the flavor, but I haven't drank soda in months, and I'm really happy about that. But being in the hospital for not eating for a week, not walking around much, not doing much of anything, I lost almost 30 pounds by the time I was discharged. You know, from just lack of eating mostly and not moving, getting exercise, stuff like that, I lost about 28 pounds. Now after eating again, starting to move around, I did put it back on about 4 or 5 pounds, which my doctor said is mostly muscle from using your muscles again, maybe a little bit of weight, but I'm still down over 20 pounds from before I went into the hospital, and I'm working on keeping that down and keeping it coming down because I feel much better now. I actually went down 2 pant sizes. I had to go shopping recently and buy a smaller waist size of jeans, 2 sizes down for me to fit. The other ones were just too big. So I'm really happy with how that turned out. Now I'm not saying, yes, go get COVID to lose weight. It just happened like that. But that's something good that came out of it. I feel healthier, I feel better, I'm slimmer, I'm eating better. But with those good things aside, the one thing that happens, and I've talked to other people who have went through it as well, is having COVID, being through a very traumatic experience, and maybe on the verge of maybe not coming home from the hospital, it plays with you mentally. Even up to recently, you know, the mental game, the mental aspect really messes with you because you just start thinking about everything you went through, thinking about how you could maybe not be here today if you didn't fight to survive. So physically it's one thing to battle COVID, but the mental part stays with you for a while, and it takes to talk to some people to be able to know that you're not the only one who feels like that, and that it is normal to think like that, to feel like that, to have those thoughts. It does get better over time, but mentally though, there's times where I just felt really stressed, a lot of anxiety, frustration, like, you know, why did I have to go through that? But then I think, you know, I'm so fortunate I made it through it. So that was, you know, something I didn't see coming that lasted with me for a while, along with my cough. Now, while being in the hospital, the one thing I want to say is that Jill, my wife, she went over, above and beyond of what I could ever expect her to do or ask her to do. She took care of everything that had to be taken care of. She took care of the household things, took care of the bills, took care of Lily, took care of everything, including talking to me several times a day, coming to the hospital, bringing me stuff I need. Without her, things would have fell apart. So without her help, her support, and Lily's, and everyone else, which I'm going to get to, but she did an amazing job. I'm super grateful and appreciative to have her in my life, and to be able to know that, you know, despite what I went through, she was able to keep doing what had to be done to keep things rolling smooth without putting us in any type of jeopardy. So everything that needed to be done was taken care of by her, because I was not able to do it. Even after I was home, I couldn't take the garbage out to the street. I couldn't go down to the door to get mail. She took care of everything for a long time, and I'm in her gratitude. You know, I just can't, it just amazes me how much she's done. I would do the same for her in a heartbeat, or Lily, if they were in the same situation. It just goes to show that, you know, at the end of the day, certain people really do have your back. With that being said, so many of you though have kept me feeling so good though, because I shared some updates on my community tab on Facebook, hundreds of comments and almost thousands of likes combined, of people just wishing me well, hoping me for a fast recovery, and just wanting to see me get better and to just take any time I need to get better. And 2 people in particular actually went out of their way to send me care packages. So those people know who they are. I just want to thank you so much for your kindness, support, generosity to myself, my wife, my daughter, because it just shows, you know, people do care more than just words. Some people go above and beyond. And I never expect anything like that. I don't expect donations. I don't expect items being sent to me. I just ask for prayers and wishes for me to get better. So everyone on my channel, my community, I am super grateful to have you there and to be looking out for me. Any prayers and wishes did help. I finally came home and able to do this with you. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, which I'm sure a lot of people are wondering about, as far as vaccinations and stuff like that. Now, when I got tested positive for COVID, Jill and Lily went and got tested as well, because we're in the same house, we're in the same room, we're next to each other. They both tested positive as well. Jill and Lily are vaccinated. Jill got vaccinated for her job, Lily got vaccinated for school. I am not vaccinated. I wasn't vaccinated when I got tested positive. The reason why is because I was uncertain of the long-term effects of the vaccination, as many people were. So I wasn't really comfortable getting it. But my tune has changed on that. Jill and Lily both lost her taste and smell. Lily got a cough, she got a fever for a day or two. Jill got more of a respiratory thing where she was just really blocked up, congested, had a cough, a sore throat. But after about a week or so, they were feeling much better. Lily's taste and smell took about a week and a half to come back, but fever went away, cough went away, congestion went away, just with over-the-counter medicine. They didn't have to go to the hospital. And for me, that proved that having the vaccination, I may not have been in the hospital. And you know, when doctors and nurses ask me, are you vaccinated? I had to be honest, I'm like, no. They're like, well, why not? I'm like, well, this is because why? And they're like, we understand, but you understand that if you had the vaccination, you may not be here right now. I'm like, yes. When I was in the hospital talking to a doctor who told me I might go on a ventilator, I'm thinking in my head, why was I so dumb? Why didn't I get the vaccination? So coming full circle now, after talking to my doctor, I have to wait 90 days from when I was discharged because I have antibodies built up from fighting off COVID. After 90 days, I could get the vaccine. I'm pretty certain I'm going to, because I don't want to go through that again. I feel if I was to get COVID again and go through the same thing, I may not survive this time, just because my lungs took such a hit for so long that I may not fight through it this time. So having the vaccine, you can still get tested positive for COVID, but 9 times out of 10 it's going to keep you out of the hospital and only give you mild symptoms. So like I said, I'm not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. That's just my personal choice, and the facts spoke for themselves. Jill and Lily had mild symptoms compared to me. I'm thankful they didn't have to go to the hospital. So if you made it this far, I'm surprised. I know this is a long video. I did tons of talking, but I had to get everything out there. This is a story I want to share with you guys, and I want it to be as transparent, clear, upfront, and honest as I could, because I felt it was the only way to express my experience and story with you. If you have gone through something similar, I'd love to hear your story as well. You know, write up a brief summary. Have you been on Vapotherm? Have you been on oxygen at home afterwards? Have you even been on a ventilator and survived, which is kind of rare to hear. But if you want to share, you're welcome to. If not, I completely understand. Like I said, if you don't get COVID or only have mild symptoms, consider yourself very fortunate. I never want to wish anyone to go through what I went through, where I felt like I wasn't going to live, where I wasn't going to survive. With that out of the way, I do have a little bit of news I do want to share with you. So, as you could probably tell, I did change my channel icon and banner. I changed it about a week ago after you're seeing this video. I had that same picture of me, you know, with the color sweater, black and white background, and my, you know, background, my banner, sorry, of the train bridge, the Volkswagen, and other stuff. I had that for a few years, and I figured it's time for an update. Things have changed. I'm feeling different now and have a new outlook on life. I want to start fresh in 2022. So on YouTube, on Facebook, and on my Patreon, my channel icon, which is the camera lens with the JPVideos, and the banner of all the different types of things I explore and film, is the same on all 3 platforms. So if you go to Facebook or Patreon or YouTube, it'll be the same everywhere. So that way you know that you're on the right channel, the right page, stuff like that. Going forward too, people that are my patrons, those of you who've continued to be my patrons through this whole thing, thank you again. You know, your donations help keep things going while I was in the hospital, stuff like that, to help ease the burden on things. And those of you who kept viewing my videos while I was gone, it's very appreciative of you, because I was able to release a backlog of videos after I was getting home. Thankfully, I had the backlog, because it took me over 2 months to finally make my first video, which I'm doing right now. But I had the backlog of videos to share with you guys to kind of keep the channel going. But those of you who watched, who donated, super chats, super thanks, patrons, thank you so much. I wouldn't ask you to do that, but you did it on your own, even knowing that there's going to be a lull in action, that there's going to be a break for me to recover. You guys stuck by my side and kept supporting me, and I'm very thankful, appreciative of that. It just means a lot, and I'll never forget, you know, the people that have went above and beyond to just check on me daily, send messages, send emails, send donations, keep their patron donations going. It all means so much. And now, aside from me changing those things, the icon and the banner, I have some changes coming for my channel as far as content wise going forth with 2022. Now the next video you're going to see after this is an update on my model train layout called JPVille. It's been a while since I've done a video on that. Many people have been asking for an update, so I'm going to do an update on that soon. You'll see that as the next video. But after that, we're going to be gearing into a lot of adventures. I have a lot of things I have planned for as far as like walks in the woods to show you some beautiful landscapes. Items I found on Google Maps we're going to go searching for, trying to search for some old ruins and remains. Once it gets warmer, doing some aquatic adventures, going along riverbanks, doing some more snorkeling, underwater metal detecting. I have a lot planned for this year. More railroad ruins, a couple of abandoned things mixed in. I'm going to do more scavenger hunts. We're going to be getting back to Knoebels for opening weekend. Going to be dialing back on mundane stuff though, like, you know, chow time I may do here and there for a special occasion, but if I do any food type reviews, they're going to be mixed in with other videos, mixed in with like adventures, stuff like that, or if I'm at Knoebels or at the fair, you know, I'll be trying foods there, but I'm not going to be doing just chow time too much. Once in a while for a special occasion, maybe at a restaurant, something like that. I do have plans to do more traveling in the future, to going to some places I've been to before, but also new places, but primarily I'm going to be focusing on exploring and adventures, going in the woods, going to parks, searching for things, just having walks in nature, and just kind of keeping active and showing what the beautiful state of Pennsylvania has to offer, and going on fun little searches, you know, searching for things I found on Google Maps, trying to identify old ruins and remains, some roadside finds I found. Like I said, I do have a couple abandoned things that are going to be coming mixed in, but not a whole lot. But nonetheless, I am excited for the future. I have a new outlook on things. You know, I'm really grateful to be here to continue what I'm doing, to do what I love to do, which is make videos and content and to share my life with you guys, and to just keep things going in a new direction, and just to have a positive outlook on things and not take things for granted, just to realize that things could have been much worse, but I'm here. The walking that I did today, I feel good. I'm not out of breath. I'm not exhausted. So I'm in a much better place mentally, physically, and I'm excited for the remainder of this year. And anyone who has been sick, I just hope that you have recovered or do have a quick recovery. And if you do get sick down the road, you know, just do your best to play it safe, to do what you have to take care of yourself. Don't hesitate on going to the hospital if you have to. If you feel short of breath and you're feeling exhausted, go to the hospital, because if you wait too long, you may not even have a chance to come back out of the hospital. I made it just in time. It could have been much worse. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you do want to continue watching more channels on my video, somewhere on the screen here you will see a video popping up. And if you are new to my channel, I encourage you to check out my playlist, and if you like what you see, consider subscribing to the channel. I put out at least 2 videos a week. And one more thing too, I may start incorporating some lives here and there. I do some lives out in nature doing some walks, may do some drive streams again, but lives are going to come back slowly, but not in full force. It's just going to be here and there, but lives will make a return this year. I'm excited to reconnect with you guys doing those. They're always a lot of fun. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, for listening, and for understanding my absence of my channel. I am back now, officially back here on Groundhog Day. February 2nd, 2022 marks the day I officially returned, and thank you so much. I'm going to give you a big hug right now for being there for me, for listening, for watching, for supporting, and everything you've done and continue to do. It means so much. Don't forget too, as I mentioned, I do have Facebook. If you want to follow me on Facebook, facebook.com/JPVideos81. I do share updates, photos, and videos that don't always make it to my YouTube channel. So if you want to follow me on there and see what I'm doing kind of behind the scenes or on the side, check me out there on Facebook and Patreon. For $2 or more, you'll find out what I'm working on before anyone else. Anyways, enough of me rambling, enough for the shameless plugs. And one more thing too, I forgot, you still will see more train videos too. I'm not going to give up rail fanning. Train videos will continue at different areas: Reading and Northern, Norfolk Southern, Steamtown, Horseshoe Curve. All the exciting stuff that I love with trains will continue on as well, aside from the adventures. And a couple of surprises here and there. Some unique things I've never filmed before may pop in. And I'm sorry to be all over the place right now. I'm just thinking as I'm going. I want to be keeping you in the loop. So, all right, I'm done. Cut myself off. Thank you once again. And as always, guys, I'll see you in the next video.